Welcome everyone to our second session of the MBA Elevate Series here at UTS. Today we have our special guest Laura Wedmaier, who is a MBA graduate of UTS who majored in accounting while she was doing her MBA here. Laura is currently the CFO of Norco Corporation Limited, which is owned by Australian dairy farmers. I believe there's about 200 members of that organisation. And Laura has also held a number of non-for-profit positions as non-executive director and contributed quite significantly to non-for-profit organisations, which is really fantastic. I taught Laura as part of her MBA when she studied here. Which is great. And Laura also joined our MBA advisory group that was started last year, as many of you know. And so we got some great advice from that group and from Laura, which has been implemented into our MBA program this year. And that group is continuing. So Laura, it's great to have you back at UTS. Obviously, we're talking on Zoom because we're in different locations at the moment, but it's very exciting to have a chat to you again today. And for all our students attending, you're most welcome to ask questions in the comments, and we'll answer those questions as we move through. So no need to wait to the end or anything like that. You can ask any time. All right, Laura, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, James. Well, thanks for the introduction. So I started my career, actually I've studied twice at UTS. So first of all, I studied Bachelor of IT at UTS, and I started my career in IT working in management consulting. And during that time, I really got involved in some business transformation projects with some key clients and was really close to the finance and accounting function. And it was at that time that I was encouraged, actually, maybe you might consider a career in finance and accounting. And that's when I took myself back to UTS to do my MBA, and I majored in professional accounting. From there, I moved into a variety of finance roles. So I started actually in a compliance, like internal audit role for a multinational fast-moving consumer good company, and then commercial finance and revenue growth management. And from there, I moved into a wide range of not-for-profit roles in education. Most recently, before my current role, I was the CFO at Exchange for Change. For those living in Sydney, if you've ever returned your containers for the 10-cent refund with the return and earn scheme, that's what we were doing, managing the money and the compliance of that scheme. And now I'm at Norco Cooperative as the CFO. About 5 or 6 years ago now, I started getting involved in not-for-profit boards. I really wanted to find a way to give back. I think accountants have a really unique view of businesses. We touch all areas of the business, much like I think IT professionals, but there's probably not many others that you actually see everything going on in the business. And I wanted to give back with the skills that I'd learned. So I've been very fortunate to hold a couple of board positions, one with the Hospital Foundation up here in Queensland. I'm based in Queensland now, as well as with the Jane Goodall Institute. And earlier this year, for those that are familiar with Jane Goodall, she's the one that discovered how familiar chimpanzees are with humans, and I got to go on safari with the foundation earlier this year to see the impact of our work in Uganda, which was quite incredible. So yeah, I've had a very, very wide and varied career, probably a different journey to CFO than many others, as I started in IT and I've taken a few different varied paths across different industries, but it's definitely been something that I've enjoyed. Still not finished yet, got lots more to learn. Yeah, thanks, James.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Laura. And that's one of the things I find with teaching accounting courses, which I've taught for quite some time at UTS, is that, we find students initially have preconceived ideas, what accounting and finance professionals actually do, and what actually happens out there in industry is a very different thing. And the contributions you can make through using those skill sets, whether you specialize in them, which you have, obviously, Laura, or you use them as part of, different roles in the firm, it can still be really, really valuable. And I mean, obviously you mentioned you've learnt a lot along the way, and you've learnt, what's important in terms of skill sets and how that's evolving moving forward. I mean, one of the key things you mentioned is that, there's still things to learn. And I just wanted to pick up on that point, as a professional in industry, someone with an accounting background, even though you didn't start out with that discipline, what seems to be emerging moving forward, and what are some of the key things you think are important in terms of upskilling and focusing on as you move forward with your career?
Oh, I think the accounting and finance industry is always evolving. But looking forward, the influence of digital technology on the way that accountants do work is just incredibly moving at an incredibly fast pace, and much faster than when I first started working in finance and accounting. So the finance team's ability to adopt and make recommendations to the business around how we can do things better and automate our processes and add more value for the business is really critical. I think always, as people that are attracted to accounting are probably people that are have attention to detail and are quite technically minded. That's probably fair to say. That's most people that would be attracted in the first place. And that's like absolutely essential. But really where we add value as a finance business partner is in our relationships that we build with other parts of the business, because often we speak the same language within a finance department and in the classroom when we're learning about these concepts, but the business don't understand the language that we do as CPAs or CAs. And that's something that building those relationships and learning how to kind of teach others about the commercial skills that you've got is pretty incredible, and something that I think every accountant continues to evolve and continues to, build on your communication skills.
Yeah, it really is the language of business, and it's important to speak that language and partner with all different parts of organizations to really add value, So that's quite an interesting point, Laura. And I mean, if you look, across your career, I mean, in terms of your experience with, commercial organizations and giving back to non-for-profit organizations, what are some of the key things that you've learned across this varied career so far?
I've learned a lot. I've worked in like a large number of different industries, and I think if I kept this role that I'm in now at Norco Cooperative, this is the first time I've worked in the dairy industry, and in my first couple of months, I spent a lot of time out in the business. So, and what that means is going on farms. Got to go and visit some of our farmers to see how that happens. I didn't visit them at 4 a.m. That's still on the to-do list of when they're actually milking the cows, but have been on farm to see how that works and been in the factories. And I think for me, I've really learned a lot about those industries to make sure that I can translate what those numbers mean in real life, because you can't just stay behind the desk and translate or understand really what the spreadsheet's meaning unless you know actually what's driving the business and those core things. And I think that's things that's been interesting for me as well, that I've worked in not-for-profit, I've worked in consumer goods, I've worked in recycling. There are different things that drive each of those industries, and then being able to see different things that are important and bring that kind of cross-fertilization of ideas across different industries has been really interesting for me as well.
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting, and I suppose we try to contextualize that to a significant degree in our MBA course, where we talk about real life industry examples in a variety of different contexts to get a better hold on, some of the concepts that we are teaching. And it obviously really helps, as, vast majority of our students have substantial industry experience. So having those conversations in the classroom really makes, understanding those different concepts and how to apply them much, much richer, so that's a really important thing. So you're a fellow of CPA Australia, I believe. So what does that involve? How do you become a fellow of CPA Australia?
So to become a fellow of CPA Australia, I might not get the exact years right here, James, but you have to have at least 15 years of experience as in industry. And you need to have had at least 5 years in an executive finance role as well, and basically demonstrated that you've made a significant contribution to the accounting industry. So for me, as part of my application to become a fellow, I was able to demonstrate that with my CV, with my resume, but it was also around the work that I've done as a not-for-profit director and how I've mentored other accountants and really contributed to that accounting profession more broadly. Yeah, so I achieved last year.
Fantastic. One of the key things that we're having, challenges with in industry is shortages of accounting graduates coming through. It's an issue that's been getting worse over the last few years and is predicted to get worse over the next 5 to 10 years in Australia and many other countries around the world, including different countries in Europe and the United States. And, a lot of that seems to be driven by, misconceptions about what the accounting profession is about. And as someone that's worked, quite extensively in this profession and has worked across a number of different industries and different positions, I mean, what's your perspective on this, Laura?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a misconception. Even if you tell someone at a barbecue or at a social event that you're an accountant, you probably don't get many other follow-up questions because people might not think that there's, much to know. People think they know what an accountant does, but I don't think that they really do. I think often people will think that being an accountant is a lot about maths. For me, it's all about problem solving
Mm.
and it's about supporting the business. Um, but I think there's some key skills as well that accountants can bring, that we really need this bias to action, often doing the calculations in my role and coming up with what the numbers might be might actually be the easiest part, might
Mm.
actually be the quickest part as well. And a majority of my work will actually be influencing the business to understand, influencing and coaching non-financial stakeholders into understanding the numbers and what those mean. I think there's a misconception about automation as well. So, I mean, I certainly believe that a lot of basic accounting tasks are going to be automated and are already being automated, but that doesn't mean that there's no role for accountants. This finance business partnering is something that is very difficult to automate and be able to coach and really work with the business in a way that can drive performance. Whereas those low-level tasks that we used to have to do very manually, which has been happening and getting automated for a long time, from having hard copy general ledgers and hard copy journal entries to now doing these in, significant ERP systems, we've already seen this change happening and this will just continue. I think it actually makes the profession even more exciting because it means those more menial tasks are going to be removed and there's more of the value add jobs that are available for us because those tasks have been automated.
Mm. Yeah, and I mean, this is, I guess, it's not only an accounting specific thing that's happening in terms of
Absolutely.
automation and the importance as a professional, regardless of your discipline background, in being able to partner with different people in parts of the business to achieve objectives. So when we look at that more broadly and we think about the skill sets that are valuable
Mm.
in industry,
Mm.
um, what do you think some of the key skills are, say from a soft skill perspective, that industry is looking for in graduates, whether they're an MBA graduate or they're a graduate from other degrees that we teach?
Yeah, I think under like being able to communicate, so holding a conversation, whether that's on Zoom or in person, having a high level of integrity as well, I think is really important, particularly in accounting, because we'll often, come across curly information that we might need to present and we'll be, faced with quite resistant feedback, maybe just initially at some points. And we need to be able to communicate that in a really calm way, maintain our integrity and do that. And that can be very challenging when it's challenging data that you might have come across. And I think this like willingness and ability to learn and to be able to do that and to be coached and receive feedback, you need to be very self-aware. The world is always changing. Industry is very fast-paced. And if you're not self-aware, it's going to be quite challenging for you to be able to learn and adapt as the workplace that you're working in evolves as well. I think it's quite a nice skill set. I don't know if this is a soft or technical skill set, James, but for accounts to have some kind of project management discipline as well. It doesn't have to be formal project management courses, but from that, around project management, what I mean is like knowing how to get things done, set up a plan, be able to rally stakeholders together, and to be able to align people around a plan, I think is really important because it's one thing to calculate your analysis. The next thing is actually having that bias to actually how are we going to put this in place and how we're going to help drive the business.
Yeah, absolutely, Laura. Um, and that ethical, decision making and thinking through that is really core to the accounting profession and many other professions as
Mm.
well. So I teach into the Chartered Accountants program, so I'm a facilitator in one of the subjects, and that's the core first subject that
Yeah,
students start
absolutely.
out with
Yeah.
um, across the program. And it really sets up the basis of how we go about making decisions, what we need to weigh up, what's very important there, and making sure we do right by a variety of different stakeholders.
Mm.
And I think from what we teach in the UTS Business School, we look across a broad set of stakeholders and we think about the implications of what we are doing beyond, say, what's the implications for profit for our shareholders.
Absolutely.
It's much wider than that. And so this perspective really encompasses that. So,
Mm.
I think that point really resonates very strongly with us here at UTS. But also the communication absolutely is very important. And it's interesting because, a number of students will say to us, well, I prefer to do my own thing when it comes to assessment in group work.
Mm.
And that's particularly the case we find in undergraduate programs. Students are a little bit hesitant about engaging in those group projects and doing those group assignments. But I find that a lot less the case in our postgraduate programs, say in our MBA, because students are coming from some industry experience, so they understand the importance of building on those skills and progressing them moving forward. So again, I think that's a really strong point that resonates, here. And we also have a lot of students that are interested in project management. So I think our cohort will certainly understand that point. We do offer a project management major, which is one that students ask a lot of questions about in terms of, if that's something they're interested in as well. So it's good to hear your perspective on that. So obviously you mentioned that, you decided to specialize in the accounting finance profession. You came back to UTS to pursue that angle, but obviously you chose the MBA as the place where to specialize in that. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about why you chose an MBA to further your studies and do accounting within that, and why you came to UTS to do that MBA?
Yeah, so why I chose rather than doing, I guess, a master's of professional accounting, I guess that was the other alternative that I was weighing up when I chose to do the MBA, majoring in professional accounting. I really wanted that like broader strategic thinking because I could see that I had a strong technical background already from my IT perspective. And I thought, well, I don't know, IT and accounting, that's probably the most technical that you can get, maybe an engineer on top of that. So I wanted to kind of bring that more strategic and broader lens to my work, and I felt like the MBA would be able to achieve that, and it definitely did. There's still things that I recall from conversations that I had in my MBA classes that I draw on in my current work. And why UTS for me? I mean, I think UTS is known for being really close to industry. And I was interested in working with or studying with a university that I knew would be that had been designed by industry leaders in concert with academia as well, so that I knew it would be really applicable for me in real life and something that I could kind of take away straight away rather than just being theory. And that's something that I found in my undergraduate, and then was very confident choosing UTS again for my master's, and yeah, really enjoyed it again being there for the second time.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Laura. We get a lot of students that come from a variety of different pathways. Some of them, like yourself, have done degrees at UTS, and a lot of them haven't done degrees at UTS. They've studied in different places all around the world. And so that's one of the aspects of our cohort that's quite interesting in terms of the different study experience and industry experience students bring in when they come into the MBA. One of the things with our MBA, which I guess was the same when you did the MBA at UTS, I mean, I'm not entirely sure because I didn't look after the MBA program back then. But students are given options, in terms of what to specialize in terms of majors, sub-majors, electives. And I have a lot of conversations with students in terms of what to choose. So students initially will choose a particular major, sub-major, etc. And then they'll think, maybe I should do something different, and specialize in a different area. And that's a surprise to some of our students, because some of our students come from pathways where once you've selected your degree and you've selected a particular major, you're locked in. That's pretty much it, and you can't do anything different, which is certainly not the case here. So, I mean, when you started your MBA, did your perceptions in terms of, or your preferences in terms of what you wanted to specialize in, change in any way? Did that shift, your plans moving forward in any way than what you initially thought that they would be when you started an MBA with us?
Not for me. I think I was set that I wanted to do the professional accounting major because I wanted to progress to be a CPA following that. But certainly knowing that there was flexibility, I think always gives you some comfort when you're signing up for, a multi-year significant investment in your professional learning. Knowing that there are choices if I did get partway through was attractive to me as well, because sometimes you don't know until you start if you're going to enjoy it. But yet I didn't exercise that. I kind of stuck to my path. Yeah, once I'd commenced.
Yeah, and some of our students certainly do that, so some of our students will start and they'll wonder, should I, and, a lot of them will continue with that pathway and, that's absolutely fine as well. And so we encourage our students, critically think about what am I going to do and how am I going to move forward with that? And is this the plan I want to stick with? I suppose another important aspect of what we do here at UTS is that we have a lot of other aspects, to our learning on an extracurricular basis beyond the content that's taught, as formally part of the program that students are required to complete. And this could be in the form of, leveraging LinkedIn Learning that's available through the UTS library and doing different courses there. This could be, working with UTS Soul to give back to non-for-profit organizations as part of your learning. Do you have any advice there, Laura, on, the importance of that, what students should think about leveraging in that regard? As they move forward with their degrees, because I guess some of our students will come in and go, well, there's classes, I go to the class, I pass for subjects, that's pretty much it. But should they think more broadly beyond excelling in the subjects they're completing as part of their MBA and do other things while they're studying with us?
I mean, I think it all comes back to depending on what your preferences are. However, certainly if there were options like that to do these kind of mini courses that are really hands-on, I think that's something that I would have taken up. I would imagine that many of the MBA students are working at the same time, whether that's part-time or full-time. And because university courses are fantastic, they play a different role to short courses, I think. And you get, a lot more in-depth learning and understanding from doing your MBA. But then these short courses like LinkedIn, this is like a bite-sized little top-up that can be something that you can action the next day, rather than being a module that you're going to week on week, over a series of months, really understand in depth. So I think that they play different roles in what you might be learning, and you might have something, even it might be a refresher, something that you learned in your first year of your MBA. Now there's a LinkedIn course on that, just a little refresher of doing that for an hour probably will help you if you're then tackling that, tackling something at work.
Yeah. And I guess in the organizations you've worked in, that consistent upskilling, as accounting professionals, there's an expectation that we consistently upskill each year to maintain our membership of professional accounting bodies.
Yeah, it's
and
very significant
say that again, Laura.
Very significant CPD that's required too. Yeah, in terms of hours.
Yeah, that's it. That's right. And as someone that's worked across a number of different industries, what's your advice for our students in terms of what they should expect to, put in terms of that consistent upskilling? It doesn't matter if they're an accounting professional or some other professional. Are there key things that students need to, once they graduate and even before they graduate, keep an eye on and maintain their level of skills as they move forward to make sure their knowledge is current and relevant in industry?
Yeah, I'd always be encouraging once they've graduated and they're in a workplace to be working really closely with your line manager and your, people and culture team to make sure that your goals that you're setting are clearly aligned with the company objectives and with your manager's objectives too, and that there's development that you can participate. This is still the process that I do with the CEO who I report to now, align with their goals, and then set my professional learning plan in there. As a CPA, you're required to do 20 hours of learning per year, and over a 3-year period, I think it's 120 hours. So it's quite significant learning that I do myself, and I look at things like LinkedIn courses At the moment, we're looking at Power BI and these analytics courses, and that's the focus of my team from a technical skill perspective. And I think these short courses are something that are perfect to pick up these little refreshers or technical skills that's hard to pick up on your own by just learning. Or you can do it on your own, but it might take a little bit longer.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point, Laura, because a lot of the time, when we're doing, I mean, a lot of my role is research, and we get to a problem, we go, well, we don't have the skill for that, and we'll go off and, learn how to do that. And that's an important point, but I think what you're saying is you should think more strategically in terms of that upskilling each year and across a series of years. So yes, we do need to do things on a bits and pieces basis to understand different things as they come along. But it's also important to think more holistically across what you're doing and what your role involves to make sure you stay current. I think that's a really important point. So, we can get onto LinkedIn, we can do 100 different courses, but how does that fit in with what you're doing and what's the plan there? And of course, LinkedIn Learning is one of many different providers that we can leverage in this regard. That's great. In terms of your advice for our current and future MBA students, as I mentioned, some students like yourself have decided I'm going to do this and that's pretty much it. Others are a little bit more undecided. I mean, what would your advice be for students to make an informed decision in terms of, what to specialize in as part of their MBA and what to focus on in their MBA?
I mean, I think the great thing about the MBA is the first few subjects are the same for everyone. Is that's still the case, James?
Correct. Yeah. So we have a core of 6 subjects, including our capstone.
Yeah. So you get an opportunity to start without having committed yet, which is fantastic. I'd suggest that students really think about what their long-term goals are going to be. Sometimes it can be easy to think about, okay, what do I want to do right now? But if you've got a goal that you do want to work in finance, for example, on long term, or you want to work in project management long term, even if it's not what you're doing now, that's probably the direction that you should think about where your specialisation is. But yeah, I'd probably link it back to those long-term goals. If you've had feedback in your current work as well around where your gaps might be to achieve those goals too, I would bring that into your thinking. But yeah, trying to map out an overall plan and how this MBA, this is one part of your development plan. You're still going to keep learning even after you've finished your MBA. This is not the last opportunity to learn things, but there are, if you do want to be an accountant, there are certain things that you need to do, that you make choices right now around that. So yeah, mapping it into your long-term career plan is important.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic advice. And a lot of our students are also looking for opportunities in industry, while they're studying with us. As you know, we have a lot of international students in our on-campus MBA program here at UTS at the moment. So they have experience in a range of disciplines before coming to UTS and coming to Australia. And they're looking for those opportunities to enter industry and apply what they're learning in their MBA and draw on prior experience that they've gained, which, as I mentioned, can be quite substantial in many cases. What would your advice be for those students in order to, maximize and leverage what they've learned and what they are currently learning again, I'll restate the question in terms of what would your advice be to help those students leverage their MBA studies knowledge and prior knowledge to make the most of that and to get the best stepping stone they can when they study with us here at UTS?
In terms of like employer opportunities when they're
Correct.
looking
Yeah,
at that?
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's lots of different ways to approach it. But I think looking for a company where there may be more than one role in that company that you'd be interested in would probably be a good place to start. So if there's a company that's got a finance department, if you are looking at finance roles, that's large enough that there's at least, one or two steps from your initial going in position, I think would be worthwhile, because one thing that's really important when you're first starting out is to make sure that you're getting that depth of experience. And that doesn't mean you have to stay in the same job for 5 years or anything like that, but you could be doing different roles in the same company, and that still keeps you interested, but you're getting depth in that industry while still getting the interest of a new role, and kind of getting that breadth of experience too. So I think that's something that can help you progress quicker if you're able to join companies where there's more than one role that you might be interested in and qualified for after you've got some more experience as well. I guess the other way I've seen other peers do this is around looking at contract opportunities. Sometimes it can be a good way to try different industries before you know where you might want to specialise as well in an industry, and these can often come up at short notice, and if you're available for that, that can be a really great opportunity to get involved in more strategic work than what you might be able to secure if it was a permanent role. And then if you prove yourself, often that's an opportunity to secure a permanent role in that business too. So kind of two different strategies, I think, to be able to apply that knowledge straight away, and then be able to embed it as well. So it's not just, so that you've got growth in the company that you initially join.
Fantastic. Now, obviously, we're nearing the end of our interview with Laura today. If anyone's got any questions, please make sure to ask them in the chat before we finish up. And I think more broadly, Laura, as we finish up today, I mean, what else would you like to share with our MBA students? If we went back in time and we said, if you knew if there were certain things that you wish you knew at the time that would have helped you, with your studies and thinking through where you're going moving forward, what key advice do you have for our students?
Look, I think with any study, you get out what you put in, and it can be very hard to dedicate the time required when you're working full-time or even working and studying at the same time. But I would encourage students to, really build relationships with other people in your class, because I think they can be relationships that you can continue to grow and learn from following your studies as well. One thing that I wish I'd done when I was doing my MBA is there's still things that I think about that I go, oh, I wish I still had that textbook or those notes, or I remembered where I'd saved that, because there's a lot of valuable information that some of it, it's not until 3 or 4 years later that I go, oh, now I actually have an opportunity to apply this. And I remember that we talked about it in this one lesson, but can I find my notes or remember that in detail? Not really. So I think keeping records of that, because sometimes it may not be, particularly because in the MBA, you'll be learning things that are like quite strategic and quite large, and you may not have had an opportunity to actually apply that in the real life yet. And it may take a while for you to be in a role to be able to do that, which has been my experience. So I think, keeping copies of your notes, or even, just a note of where you've saved some of these things, I think would be really valuable long term, because you will get a lot out of the MBA program at UTS, and it'll be something that you will reflect on for a very long time, not just in those immediate roles. After your course.
Yeah, that's great advice, Laura. I had a lecturer when I did my undergraduate many years ago, and he used to say to us all the time, don't do the ceremonial burn of all your notes at the end of the session. These will come in handy one day. And so, that brings me back to those days when he used to say that, all the time throughout the teaching session, actually. And it's a really important point, because a lot of our students will, not so much actually MBA students, more so undergraduate students I've taught, will ask and go, why do I need to know this? I'm never going to apply this, and I think we can all do that to a certain extent when we're doing a course, because we're looking, what are we doing now? How can we apply this now? But it's not until we get down the road and we find out and we go, oh, that's why this is important. That's why that's important. That's how these things work together. I think it doesn't matter what career path you pursue, that's a really, really important point. And having the, hindsight to, keep your notes, reflect on different things across a period of time, keep in touch with your network where you can reflect on these things with your network, because having that network outside your employer is also an important thing, to be able to reflect with that network, and that's a network that really should stay with you for life, and that's kind of one of the key reasons why we have these networking events, and we encourage students to attend, to keep in touch with each other, outside the classroom. It's a really important part of your MBA studies. The other point you made in terms of looking at focusing on your studies, I mean, a lot of that relates to expectations, right? So yeah, you can finish your MBA by passing a whole range of different subjects, but is that enough? I mean, what's your thoughts on that, Laura?
Yeah, I don't think that's the point of the MBA, just rushing through it.
Mm.
I mean, really applying what you're learning at work and talking about it at work as well. There were concepts that I'd be bringing back and talking about over coffee at work, even with my colleagues that were not participating, but they were enjoying kind of learning about what I was learning. But because it is quite in depth, and complex topics as well that you're learning, I think you do need to dedicate that time, and making sure that you don't overload yourself to rush through. I think I started doing 2 subjects at a time when I first started, and that was quite a heavy load when I was working full time. So I had dropped back to one subject for a period of time when I got promoted into a busier role while I was still completing that. And I think making sure that have the time to really dedicate to your learning, do the reading before class, because then you'll end up taking in more once you get there, and all those kind of things is really important.
Mm, absolutely. I mean, really, a lot of people say, and there's been analysis done by researchers on this, education has the highest return on investment, right? And it's one thing to sign up to a program and get into a program like the MBA UTS, but persisting with that and working hard on that
Yeah.
allows you to take that to the next level. And so that investment in your time, and what you're saying, Laura, is being strategic about what you focus on,
Mm.
uh, is absolutely critical. So yeah, we understand, students need to survive, need to earn an income, but there's a balance there, and that investment that you make in your MBA studies will reap rewards,
Yeah.
in
And I
terms
think
of
it's
depth.
planning. I think, when you've committed the investment of time and money into your MBA, that really does need to be one of the most important focus that you've got during that time, because it's not going to last forever. And I, when I was younger at school and at high school, I did like very competitive sport. So when I study, I used to say to my friends, like, I study like I train. You set yourself a training program. Doesn't matter if it's raining, doesn't matter if you're not feeling well, you still study the same as if you're training for, a certain sporting event. You still turn up when it's raining, you still turn up when you're not feeling well, and you do that. And I think it's that consistency with study and a program that's as involved as an MBA, is essential. Otherwise, if you're not consistent, then it becomes quite overwhelming pretty quickly.
Mm. Mm. And I think as part of that, it's also, as you're making decisions in terms of what to prioritize and
Mm.
what's important, what to focus on, leverage that network, talk to your network, talk to your mentors, to give you that perspective. As MBA program director, I always say to my students, you can always come and talk to me if there's
Yeah.
things you'd like to discuss in terms of your program, and I'm one person that you can talk to
Mm.
help get that perspective, and make sure that what you're doing is aligned with where you're going, and you make sure that you're putting in the effort to get the outcomes that will move forward with that. Mm.
Fantastic.
Yeah, well, it's been great catching up with you today, Laura.
You too.
Thank you so much for all that advice and your time today. That's greatly appreciated. I think there was a lot of fantastic, really impactful points that students can take on board as part of what we discussed today. And I think, yeah, if any of you have any questions, of course, let us know. We're going to post this video up online. It's going to be shared through our Canvas page. So if you have any questions in relation to this video, please ask them. And yeah, I'd like to once again thank you, Laura. Thank you for your time. It's been fantastic. and all the best with everything moving ahead with your new job there at Norco. And I look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Thanks, James. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Laura.